Alright, good. I hate microphones. They get me all sweaty and nervous and shit, so I don't really like talking into them. So good thing it's down tonight. I don't know, man. Tonight I'm really excited to be speaking right now. Like, they said double speaker, and like the first thought to my head was to pick my boy that's up here with me, and I get to share from a podium with like one of my best friends I have today. So this is like an exciting moment because we've talked about this for a while. We've like talked about like starting a big book study or something together because like we feed on each other's energy and stuff, and we've just never done it. So like tonight's like the first opportunity I actually get to do it, so it's pretty cool. But about me is my name's Trevor. Of course, I'm an alcoholic. I got sober in 2011, and I was very young whenever I got sober. I was 20 years old. Not a whole lot of people get sober at that age. A lot of people are in and out, in and out, in and out from what I've seen and just my experience, because I also get to work in the field. But whenever I got here, man, I was broken. I was done. Like, I'm not here tonight to like sit up here and share like a long drunk-a-log, or like even like talk about like just little pipe dreams that I had. Like, using sucked. And a lot of people are sitting in this room, like, you guys know exactly what I suffered from. Like, we all fought on different battlegrounds, but we lost that same war. So generally, I like to just kind of get up here and like kind of talk about what happened whenever I started to use. The thing is, I could not control the amount of drugs I began to use whenever I began to use. It was it for me. Like, for me, my main DOC is crack cocaine. I know we're in Alcoholics Anonymous, but the crack's really what took me down at that young of an age. It all started whenever I was young, though. Like, I didn't start off on crack cocaine or anything like that. I started off like anyone, really, smoking some weed, hanging out with the boys, you know, drinking some beers. And what really got me started on it is the fact that, man, that stuff helped me fit in. I came from a household where I had a bipolar, schizophrenic father. The wrong thing said, he's putting you into the wall, you eat the last chip in the bag, you know, it's over with. And he just, you know, there was never predicting what the household really held. Some days we come home, he's slitting his wrist in the bathtub, like, so really it was just like walking on eggshells, trying to keep dad happy. It never really got that love like I guess a lot of kids are looking for. You know, my daddy never hugged me enough or anything like that. Mother took kind of a blind eye to a lot of things. She was too scared to leave the relationship. You know, and I bring that stuff up, not because that's what made me drink or use. It's the fact, it's like, that's just my life. I drink and use because I'm an addict. I'm faced with two things, choice and control. I have no power over those. I have no choice in the matter of if I'm going to use or not, and I have no control over it once I begin to use it. And it's a wrap for me. This is just stuff that's happened to me, you know, just a little bit of my background. So what really led me to the drink and the drugs first was, you know, that type of like just household. And then I'd leave the house to go try to get away from everything, to kind of feel that acceptance. And it was always with the older kids. I saw them with the rims, making out with girls, smoking cigarettes, all those different things. And I just wanted to fit in with them, so I started doing what they did. They would sit and laugh at me as I walked in circles, fell down in the ditches and stuff, puked, all that different kind of stuff. And like, they would just laugh. And I thought it was because they're my friends. They like me. And the case, like, and end of the day, it's like that's not even the reason why they were laughing. I was entertainment for them, and that was it. So that's where my life was whenever I was, you know, 8 years old, was the fact that I wanted acceptance and love that much that I would put myself in those situations in order just to feel a little bit of acceptance. And I found that at such a young age that that's the stuff that made me fit in. Like, that white light experience didn't happen the first time I had a drink or like the drink or smoking the weed. It was just the fact that I fit in. The first time I took a hit of crack, I'm gonna tell you, them trains came, my ears rang. That was a white light experience for me. I fell in love with a substance that was rock solid, put me in the closet naked for 7 days, running around not knowing who I am, where I'm at, hiding from shadow people. Like, that was the deal for me. I loved that stuff, and I never loved it in just small intervals either. It was days at a time. And I found that at 14 years old, and from 14 to 20 years old, there was never a 30 or 60 really day period that I wasn't trying to get my hands on that stuff because I needed that comfort that came with it. Even though it drove me halfway crazy, I tried to kill myself multiple times coming down off that stuff. I can't even tell you the amount of pills I've swallowed to try to just take off the edge a little bit, just to get that one last little high from it. And it was never the same as it was whenever the first time I tried it. And, you know, they're like, oh, you're chasing it. It's like, no, I'm chasing a demon inside of myself to make myself feel comfortable again. And I need that stuff. Because even from such a young age, like, even whenever, like, I was in, like, kindergarten, I can look all the way back to then. And there, just to fit in, I was like a pathological little liar. Even going back to that, like, I'm a 3rd-degree black belt 5 times through whenever I'm in the kindergarten just to make kids like me and fit in with them. This is just more example of, like, I don't know if I was born with the physical or the mental. What I do know is whenever I was born, I can't remember back to like 3, 4 years old really, but from the time I can remember, like, I can remember just feeling different. I never fit in. I was never good enough. No one would ever accept me, ever like me, nothing. And that's what really started it all, because I had those feelings accompanied with the way my father was, my mother was, all the children at school were. Because, like, I'm not the smartest kid. I'm not. Like, academically, I was never the best, never A's, B's. I was like C's, D's, you know, just skating by. I was picked like right before the fat kid in gym class. I'm not the most athletic person. And like, so whenever I found my way to fit in, I ran with it. And it continued on. Like, this is all in Mississippi, and I moved to Illinois. And again, with that, with not being the smart one, not being the athletic one, all that kind of stuff, like I had a nice little jump shot, whatever the deal is, was never like smooth talking with females. Like, I'm just like a very awkward person and shy person, a very timid person. So anytime it came to talk or anything like that, I'd just get nervous and scared. And I never, you know, again, back in my head, never thinking I'm good enough. It's, you know, she's never going to date me, never going to like me, whatever it is. So a couple beers back, you know, I'm feeling good and I'm feeling all right. And it just never stopped, though. So I don't know, like, if it was from birth, if I just crossed that line, whatever it is. Finally, everything that led me up to coming down here to Florida, because I'm from Illinois, to hop on that plane to take, you know, the little, what people like to call a little insurance-paid vacation down here to a little comfy treatment center, put myself up for a month or two, and then go to the halfway house and start doing that dance. It's like, I got put into a halfway house where I got put in there with some old-timers. These guys are some real deal, big book thumping, just assholes. And these guys did not take it easy on me. I'm a 20-year-old kid, thinks I'm a gangster, think I'm tough. I have this persona on, I'm wearing these masks, and I walk into this place, and he's like, hey, little bitch, pull up your pants and shut the fuck up. Excuse my language, but that's what he said to me. And I sat down and, like, copped an attitude with him at first. And I had another guy come up and call me a snot-nosed little punk. I was like, dude, I'll beat this dude up. And this dude looked like a Hell's Angel, should be on the back of a Harley, riding off in the sunset, wearing he had a baseball bat and boxers on when I met him. And, like, I'm just not messing with you. This is it at the end of the day. Like, they do this to scare all the kids whenever they come in. And
scared straight.
And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is great, you know? It's like, I was like, where did this treatment center just send me? And, like, I just did what they said. These guys said, man, make your bed. Clean your toilet. If you're grateful, clean your toilet. Make your bed. Read this book. Get into the work. Get into these meetings, and you'll begin to see. Sit back and just watch. Watch the people who are not working in this book. Watch the people who are working in this book, and it'll come to you. So I sat around for a little bit, not doing much, sitting around, just kind of just being a little asshole. And they came enough times, hit me enough times, yelled at me enough times. Eventually, they got a little fire under me, and I went into a meeting, raised my hand at that meeting. I shared about how miserable I was. I'm like, I don't know what people are talking about, this Alcoholics Anonymous deal. I'm going to all these meetings, like they told me, you know, I'm not drinking. I'm making my bed, I'm scrubbing my toilet, and you know what? I'm still miserable. And then luckily I heard a man share about opening up this book and understanding what I'm diagnosed with as an addict and alcoholic. I need to understand these two things. They're pertinent. Choice and control. Understand those, diagnose yourself as the addict and the alcoholic, the rest is going to come to you. So I slowly just started inside the work, sitting down with my sponsor. We're reading the book, Men and Women, we essentially drink because we like the effects produced by alcohol. I love the effects produced by crack. He says supplement whatever it is that you use, plug in your name, read it through. You'll understand. So I read it through, put myself inside of this book, read the Bill's story, put myself inside of him. The amazing conversation him and Ebby had is the one conversation that opened my mind up. Because if you look back to my entire childhood, looking back to this abusive father, this man who touched me the wrong way, and then looking back at the mother that I had, look at the life that I was given, you know what? This is bullshit. I don't believe that God's real because all these people are walking around worshiping this God of their own understanding, doing this whole dancing deal, and look at the way that they're acting. Look at the way that they're treating me. This is completely unfair. I'm not with it. And thank God this man, he references the exact conversation that Bill and Ebby had sitting at that table that day. Thank God for it, because that day, after understanding, I can find my own conception and understanding of a God whatever fits me at the time that I'm finding it in, whatever idea opens up the door for me to begin to believe that maybe something can get better and change is the only thing that I needed that day. And this man allowed me an opportunity to see that. Because this scary guy is the one with this amazing conversation me and him were having. After that meeting, I shared about being miserable. I talked with the guy who I wanted to be my sponsor. He turned me away a few times. I chased him, and eventually wound up sponsoring me. I went to this guy, long-haired, scary guy in his boxers and stuff, and I had a conversation with him. And finally that day, I asked the question of, you're probably the angriest man I've ever met. Miserable, victim to everything. You're still sober. How did you do this? How did you find God when you hated him? And it was simple. He was laying on the floor of a crack house, and in popped his head, Charlie. Anyone ever seen All Dogs Go to Heaven? Yeah, this man, his first God and understanding and just conception that he found was the thought of this little girl walking in circles saying, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. And that blew my mind. I never understood find your own conception and understanding until that day, and that man gave me that conversation. That I understood exactly what it is that I was looking for. Just something. Establish an idea that maybe something might work, and you just might be okay. So I found the clouds. Unless you vape, there's no one in here that can really create a cloud, but even those clouds are gone pretty quickly. But they're pretty big and cool sometimes. You do tricks with them, but like those clouds up there, like I never found another human being that can create those. I never found anyone who could stop the rain from falling, the wind from blowing, the ocean from moving. I never found anyone who could do any of that stuff. So they said it's simple. There's a power behind it. What is it? I didn't have to put a name to it. I got to take the word God out of it. That resentment, I got to push it to the side. That irritation, that anger, that prejudice I had, I got to put it to the side. And I got to believe that there was something out there without the word God in it that I could believe in that was greater than I am, because there's maybe a mathematical equation that could figure out a cloud and all that stuff, and they can create it inside some little tank. But the thing is I don't know that math problem, so at the end of the day, that's greater than me anyway. So it really doesn't matter. That's what I believed in. They said, hit your knees and pray. Who do I pray to? It doesn't matter to whom this may concern. Get on your knees and start saying something. So I got on my knees and I started saying it. Slowly but surely, man, I found myself at 6 months. Finally, at 9 months, that little shock happened. Now, 4.5 years later, I can tell you one thing, that I have a God of my own understanding. I believe in him today. And he's amazing, but it started with a simple little moment like that. And then it took me sitting down, getting honest on this little 4-step, writing some stuff down, sharing about it with a sponsor, getting it out of the way, and then beginning to intellectualize some things and find the utilization inside of God inside of my life. Beginning to take action for myself. I couldn't just sit around and be lazy. It didn't work that way. They told me action, get involved, because I didn't want to go back out. And if I was going to be the kid I was whenever I first walked in, I don't know about anyone else, but guys, what do we look for when we first come into the rooms? Someone say, girls? I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking for her. She's got long blonde hair. She's beautiful. Haven't seen her face. I already know if I do, me and her, we're going to lock eyes for 3 seconds. We're going to fall in love anyway, so she's going to hold my hand at the end of the meeting. It's wonderful. So I find her, and I sit right behind her, and I just lock eyes on the back of her head, and I'm just, like, in love, dude. Like, we're in Maui. We're on a yacht. There's kids, little Tiffany and Travis running around. They're kicking the ball with each other. There's a dog for some reason, and I'm like, I love the dog. It's wonderful. He sits very well. But there's the thing is, like, we have this entire thing. I haven't even seen her face yet, but she's wonderful. You know, and then at the end of the meeting, like, she stands up, has a beard, so it's a dude. It's like all these emotions inside of me. It's like, dude, I fell in love with a man this entire meeting. I knew that shit that happened to me in childhood is true. Like, I like dudes. This is weird. And, like, all these emotions kick up. I leave the meeting, and I usually go, like, smoke crack or drink because of these emotions. I have no emotional control whatsoever. Or she stands up and, like, that's it. We're in love, and we lock eyes. And we're like, dude, we went to the same treatment center. This is it. We got the same like, this is wonderful. And then, you know, it's like, I think she's going to come sit, you know, stand next to me in the Lord's Prayer. And she, like, beelines for the dude across the room. And I'm like, she's a fucking whore. She's cheating already. This is bullshit.
This is shout out, man.
And usually it's like I look at that. I never go back to the home group. I don't reach out to anyone. I don't take numbers. I don't do anything with it. And I'm just done with that. And, like, that's the dude I usually am. Like, 'cause I think I'm going to find her and she's going to fix me and everything's going to be wonderful. And that's not the case for me. Like, if I could just work out a little bit, catch a tan, and then, like, go to the gym, you know, do some laundry and find the girl, get laid a little bit more, like, this ain't the fellowship for me. It's not. In this fellowship, my requirement is the fact that I need a spiritual experience and a total psychic change. I need it or I die. And not necessarily just like die physically. I die emotionally and spiritually. I'm out ripping and running. I'm tearing apart every life that comes in my path. It doesn't matter to me. And that's all I do. And then I come back, I resurface, I'm all beaten up, bloody, crying, or in jail behind a little screen talking to the family and stuff. And it's like, until I can find a way to change that, nothing's ever going to change. And whenever I read my 4-step and shared it with my sponsor on the 5th step, he's like, one thing I can tell you that you're going to do is you're going to repeat this entire thing all over again unless you begin to establish a relationship in 6 and 7. Pretty much my 3 turns to 6. That decision I made whenever I got on my knees and I prayed with my sponsor, that 3 now turns to 6 with more understanding, with more direction. Everything is now revealed up to this point for the most part, depending on how honest I got. All my character defects are there. They're placed on a list, and I begin to see how they control my life. Some assets, some liabilities, but here's 7. Take action and begin to change the ones that you need to change. Get them out of the way. Go help another addict. Because I used to come to these meetings, I used to look for chicks, all that kind of stuff. I was like banned from female halfway houses. It was bad news whenever I was first in the beginning. And then I found a way to change it. I found that I'm going to drink. At a 1.5 years sober, I almost drank. I was walking on my way to the liquor store. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I say it sometimes, I'm like, no one's ever going to believe this. Because if it happens to someone else, I'm like, okay, you're just being dramatic. But I literally, like, I was on my way to the liquor store. At this time, like, I'd practiced some principles. I'd sponsored a bunch of guys. Never really practiced out of prayer and meditation. My little sister wound up getting raped while I was sober by a best friend of mine. I was on probation. And I couldn't go back and do anything. To me, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, because they said you can go back and kill him, but the thing is are you going to be able to stay sober through that, and are you going to be able to live the rest of your life in prison knowing that your sister now is without you? I was in the worst fight of my life at that point emotionally at a 1.5 years sober. And I was on my way to the liquor store to go drink, and I cashed, and I was like, I'm done. I went to go get a bottle, sit in front of these 2 guys I had as mentors in my life, and expressed to them exactly why I'm drinking. It's the fact I cannot control the emotions that are going on inside of me right now, and I can't deal with it. I can't handle it. I'm tossed in the flag, and I'll go back to treatment, whatever the fuck I need to do, but I can't do this anymore. And while I was on my way to the liquor store, I had my first sponsor that I ever sponsored call me. I love that kid today because he's back now 3 years, and it's absolutely amazing to see him. Every time I remember the story, and I remember exactly what he did for me. Without him, I would have drank that day, because he called out with a help for me, saying, hey, I need you. Right there, the importance of a newcomer is what really came clear to me in my life. The fact is I can stay sober for a while, driven on ego, fear, the consequences of going back out, all these different things. Half-assed prayer and meditation, some little bit of inventory, a little bit of accountability, somewhat transparent, and needing those newcomers. And at that time, I wasn't working with anyone. I'd walked away from everything. I was burnt out and done. And I wasn't practicing any principles. But that day, I understood exactly what the importance of working with a newcomer can do with me inside of my life. And then after that, I found myself in just different religious courses and stuff, because I got taken back to the book, laying aside your prejudice towards the religious people and seeing what they do is right. And it's like, the Buddhists is where I found it, man. Those guys were on point with prayer and meditation. I learned how to meditate in those classes because I had no idea how to do it, and the sponsor taught me as much as that he could. And he told me, seek outside of the sponsorship in order to find more of what you're looking for. So I began to do that. They said, don't stop with just this. Don't just do this. Go out there and seek to see what these people are doing that are right, and begin to grow yourself. Like, I kicked it in church. It was fun. Not really the deal for me, and I found that, and that's what it was for me. I'm not saying that's going to be for everyone else. This is my story into sobriety, is that this book opened my mind to believe in something. But it didn't say, just stop here, just dump this, just help inside of here. Man, let's just go out in this world and help everyone. Do everything. Be there for them. If I don't, eventually, I'm going to get dried out, bored. I'm just going to go drink anyway. I need to be active inside of my life. It doesn't matter if it's a man begging on the corner for some change. It doesn't matter if it's someone sitting in a Rolls Royce, like, hey, I need help. Like, whatever the deal is, like, none of us are different. We're all human beings, and we all need help. I'm not here to judge people anymore, man. I left that stuff at the door. I'm here to just be here for people and help them out, and that's what helps me today. I need to stay focused on what it is I'm supposed to be doing today, and that's asking for direction and understanding from this God that I found. You know, helping that newcomer, man. There's people in there dying. In here dying. There's people in the corner sitting there. That one kid sitting there wanting to slit his wrist. Like, man, he's just looking for someone to talk to. The one good deed I can do in a day is go and talk to this kid and help him. That's service. One thing I can do is not come to these meetings and clown around and make jokes out of them, too. Etiquette's important because you never know who's watching you. A man taught me, man, be the big book of which someone's going to read. That means I come in here and I reach my hand out there and I help people. That means, man, I stay focused. I be there for people. And I behave properly whenever I'm here because I never know who's going to watch what I'm doing. They're going to repeat that action. You never know what's going to happen whenever they leave. Man, this is the fellowship that saved my life, man. This is the stuff that's important to me. I absolutely love it, man. And today it's like I said, it's an honor to be able to get up here and share with you guys. Like, I have a beautiful life today. I got a beautiful girlfriend. I got this amazing little pit bull puppy. I got like some decent car, a host of just amazing friends. And I call them best friends too. And like, I work with all of them. We're out here in the field doing this stuff together. And we're not just doing, you know, we're doing it everywhere. To homeless people, to people in, like, you know, wherever the people need help, man, we're there. And it's absolutely amazing to be able to do it. I never would have been able to do it unless I opened this book. Started from the first page, realizing I knew nothing, understanding some things along the way, continuing to reach out to people and finding the direction that God's, you know, He's laying out for me. Without this, man, I would have never found the life that I have today. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for coming out, man. I'm going to let Camron speak.
The seventh tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The basket is now being passed. And I've asked Billy to read the 12 traditions.
Hi, I'm Billy. I'm an alcoholic.
Billy.
12 traditions. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there has been one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group will never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise who has problems with money, property, and prestige diverted from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such will never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name will never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Billy. My second speaker here, like I said at the beginning, I just met him also, and he too, I guess, came from the same crowd because, from what I understand, he has a good story too. And if these two guys are friends, and I like what he had to say, I'm sure we're going to like what he has to say. So with that, I'd like to introduce Camron.
Hi, family. I'm Camron. I'm an alcoholic. You guys all hear me all right? Yeah. Cool. Let me just start here, man. I'm absolutely indebted to Alcoholics Anonymous. So anytime I get up here, I'm given this opportunity, I always want to say thank you. So thank you, Vince, thank you guys for having me up here. Thank you for allowing me to have this experience with my brother here. Typically my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous is that they usually let the better speaker go second. I can promise all of you guys tonight that's not the case. I love this guy to death, man. And for the last year of my sobriety, he's been my right hand. He's been one of the dudes that I've leaned on time and time again. And I can honestly say, like, I wouldn't be where I am right here, right now if it wasn't for him. So if you guys don't mind, can we give it up for Trevor one more time? So with all that being said, you know, like, if you came out tonight wanting to hear a war story, I've got bad news for you. It's not going to happen. If you want to find me after the meeting, we can sit down. We can talk about all the times I shot dope behind a dumpster in Kensington. We can talk about all the times that all this different stuff happened. Out of respect to the traditions, I'm going to try to stick to alcohol, but I want you guys to know, like, my story includes the other stuff, as I think many of ours do. But this isn't the place for a war story. You know, maybe I'm hoping I can sum up what it was like out there and the idea of the first step in, like, just a quick analogy. And I remember when I was newly sober, a guy gave me a book, and it wasn't like it wasn't a recovery book. It wasn't a, like, spiritual growth book. It was just a novel. And inside the confines of that novel, it told this little story, and it was talking about these scientists that were studying the brain. And they talked about this part of the brain that allows us to experience euphoria from alcohol, from drugs, from that kind of stuff. And I don't remember what they referred to it as. It was like some big Latin word. But they kept saying the pleasure central of the brain. And so what they did is they took these laboratory rats and they put them in, and we've all heard this story before, and they put these two little wires in their brain. And what they did is they gave it a little juice and just enough electricity to stimulate that section of the pleasure center of their brain. And what happened is the rat got loaded. You know, the rat got drunk. It had that experience that I think a lot of us had. And whatever that experience is for you, I'm not here to dictate. But what they did is they hooked those wires up to a pedal, and they allowed the rat to decide how much he wanted to use. And what he did is what we all did, and essentially he just lays on the pedal. You know, he hits it, he realizes what happens, and he just lays on the pedal. And he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't do any of that stuff, he just lays on the pedal. That's not the part of the book that blew my mind. I think we all relate to that. I know a lot of people in this room, I know there's a lot of rats just like me where all we did was stay on the pedal and try to get more and more and more and more. The part that blew my mind is obviously the rats stayed there until they died. Typically they died of dehydration. And what happened is the scientists kept watching this, and they saw this time and time again, these rats passing away, passing away. So what they started to do is they waited till the moment right before they were about to die, and they cut off the juice. And what the rat did is he started to hit the panel there, and noticed that nothing was coming back. And he frantically hit it again and again and again, trying to get this stuff back, trying to recreate this thing that had just happened to him. And then what happens is when he realizes that he's no longer able to reproduce what just happened to him, he doesn't just go back to being a regular rat. What he does is he lays on the cage of the floor and waits to die. And on July 6, 2013, that's exactly where I was. I was at that place. I wasn't able to go back to just being a normal person. I wasn't able to go back to, the times when it was fun. And I didn't know, I didn't think at that time that I wanted to be sober. And if God would have came down and met with me face to face and said, you know what, Camron, you have one wish, and I will make it come true, my wish would not have been for sobriety. Here's the reality of it is I'm a kid that when I put down drugs and alcohol, my life gets worse. I fear this detox, I fear this withdrawal, I fear all of this stuff. And the reality is I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol. The big book tells me that. But I also have an abnormal reaction to being sober. When I'm sober, it's just Cam and it's just me and he's sober, I hate it. I'm just not okay. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I'm not, I'm full of fear. I've lived my entire life on this selfish and self-centered basis, and I want out. It doesn't matter what the substance is. It's irrelevant. For me, it's all like, anti-Camron medication. Get me out of right here, right now. And like I said, that's where I was on July 6, 2013. You guys understand the first step. I think you all lived it. I'm very clear on the fact that when I look up at the wall, there are the steps on the wall, and it says we admitted we were powerless. What we're talking about is the fact that I lack power of choice and drink. And if I can make a decision to just not pick up, or I can make a decision to not use and do so, I can promise all of you I wouldn't be sitting here at Fern House on a Thursday night. I would probably be out at movies or dinner with my girlfriend, or I'd be playing bingo or doing something. I wouldn't need to be here. I wouldn't need to sponsor people. I wouldn't need the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wouldn't need to answer the phone at 3 a.m. for a terrified newcomer, because I'd just be not picking up no matter what. The reason that I get so passionate about that is because I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous prior to July 6, 2013, which is my sobriety date, and I got into the hands of some people that were welcome in the rooms of AA because the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, but they did not need to be here. And I got into the hands of some people like that, and I took guidance from them, and they did not need to do the same things that I needed to do to stay sober. They didn't have to have a spiritual experience. They're the guys that Trevor was talking about that can come down to sunny South Florida, and they can hashtag live where you vacation, and they can gym, tan, laundry, and they'll start to feel a little bit better. That doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. I've tried it. I've been in and out of the rooms. I came down here under the impression that Alcoholics Anonymous was about meeting attendance. That if I went to enough meetings, which fortunately I live in South Florida, there's a meeting on every single corner. If I go to enough meetings and I live in this cute little halfway house, I'll stay sober. The UAs and the meetings will keep me sober. And I had no idea what Alcoholics Anonymous was actually about. I didn't know that the heart of this was the 12 steps as outlined in the big book. That's the only thing we have to offer here. The entire point of meetings is so that the newcomer can find the fellowship that they seek, so that the newcomer can come here and find somebody that has walked that 12-step path and put their hand in God's hand, that can free them from the obsession to drink. When I sit up here and I talk to you guys, I'm talking about the idea of never, ever having to go back to active alcoholism, to never, ever having to go back to the way you were living however long ago. For me, 2.5 years ago, I wanted to die. I don't even know if I wanted to die. I just didn't want to live the way I was living, and I didn't know any other way out. Like it talks about in A Vision for You, I couldn't imagine a life with alcohol, and I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol. I didn't know where that left me. And what happened, man, is I flew down here, and I went into a cute little treatment center, and I got some separation. I got physically detoxed, which is the first step of the process typically. And again, like my only experience with sobriety was that I put down the drugs and alcohol and I'm left with me. And that's not a good place to go. And Alcoholics Anonymous, I feel like we're big on the idea of like, we promote this idea of, hey, do you want to stop? But like, not too often do we promote the idea of, do you want to find peace once you stop? Which is exactly what the 12-step fellowship and all of them are about. Because if that's not the case, if I just stop and I'm left with me, I don't want it. I don't want it. I've tried it time and time again, and I've been left by myself, and I've been bone dry sober, not working any steps, not getting connected to any sort of power. I've done that time and time again, and it's miserable. And I look around the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous very often, and I see people with 10, 15 years and absolutely no steps in their life that are living like that. And if it was me, I get to a point where I'm either going to drink or I'm going to put a bullet in my head. I become irritable, restless, and discontented if I can't again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once from taking a few drinks. And that's been my experience my entire life. But like I said, I wound up in this little treatment center, and thank God for good sponsorship. Thank God for the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a guy bring an H&I meeting there, and he shared exactly what the first step was. He understood the idea of how could I possibly fix a problem if I don't know what the problem is. How could I possibly defeat an enemy if I don't know what it looks like, where it dwells, what its habits are? And he explained that from the podium in a treatment center, and it made sense. It made sense. I got into the hands of somebody that had the ability to make this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous come to life. And I could layer my experience over that, and I could look at the first step, and I could see, and I could concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic, I was a drug addict. And that left to my own devices, I would 100% drink again. If I believe that I'm powerless, I got to find some power. I got to get connected to some sort of power. That's what the step process allows me to do. And I went up to that man, I asked him to sponsor me. And as soon as I got out of treatment, he sat down and he started taking me through the literature. And again, man, like, I came in here so blocked off from you guys, so blocked off from myself, and so incredibly blocked off from whatever it is that you guys want to call God. I'd lived my entire life up to that point on just a selfish and self-centered basis. I was the star of my own universe. The only reason any of you guys could possibly exist is to appease me or to make me happy. And when you don't do that, I become resentful. And that's how I've lived my life pretty much up until I was 24 years old. And that man sat me down and like I said, he showed me the first step out of the book, not off the wall. And he made me believe that. And he made me internalize that. And I'm a firm believer that a lack of motivation to do steps 2 through 12 comes from a lack of internalization or understanding of step 1. The majority of people that I see come into meetings, just sit around and then leave and not do anything stepwise, it's because they don't believe 100% in their hearts and in their heads that they will walk out of this meeting and short of a spiritual experience, they will drink again. They will use again. That's my experience. I can't say if it's yours. I hope that you have a sponsor that's well-versed enough to sit you down and show you that in the literature and allow you to look at that and see, is that me? Does my experience show that despite having this immense desire to stop, despite having the long list of consequences, I cannot make a decision to stop and do so? I find myself drunk again and again and again. Anybody in here that knows my story knows that I absolutely love my mother with all my heart. She's my entire world, and I would never want to hurt her. And drugs and alcohol took me to a place where that's all I consistently did was hurt her. And countless times I sat across from her and I said to her, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It's tearing apart the family. Not only that, she can't sleep at night. You know, when I'm out doing whatever it is that I'm doing, she can't sleep. I've robbed her of money. I've robbed her of peace of mind. I robbed her of all of that stuff. And I sat there and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to stop. And I meant it, 100%. I meant it as much as I mean it. Sitting here tonight telling all of you, I never want to use again. I meant it. And what happened is I walked away from that conversation and found myself drunk again and again and again. That's the first step right there. Despite having that desire, despite the consequences, despite all that stuff, I find that I go back to it over and over and over again. I have no defense against the first drink. And I was motivated, man. He took me through step 2 real quick. It's one sentence out of the book. He asked me if I was willing to believe. You know, he didn't say in what. He didn't say that I had to have a conception of God. He told me, listen, man, like if you can wrap your broken, diseased, twisted little head around an infinite God, you probably need a new God anyway. It's not about whatever your conception of God is. It's about whatever your experience with God is, and you get that experience as a result of going through the actual steps. If I don't do that and I don't have an experience, it doesn't matter if I believe in God or not. It's not going to get me anywhere. And then he had me hit my knees and do a third step. And he made a decision. You know, I made a decision essentially just to get out of my own way. And, you know, we talked earlier. I said, you know, like, what I need to do in order for me to get connected to that power and for me to be freed of the obsession is I need to have that spiritual experience. I need to have that entire psychic change. And that happened for me when we did my 5th step. And I was able to identify all those things that Trevor talked about. I'm a huge believer that I didn't have 20 bad relationships. I had one bad relationship with 20 different girls. And I need to start to identify that, or what's going to happen is I'm going to continue to have that same relationship time and time again. I believe I wasn't resentful at 100 different people. I had the same 1 or 2 resentments against 100 different people. And I need to start to address that as well, because what will continue to happen is that will manifest itself in my life over and over and over again. And what happened is he burned my 5th step, and he looked at me and he said, you need to learn to love yourself. And he said the way to do that is to start to forgive yourself. The answer for resentment is forgiveness, and it's not until you forgive yourself and you ask God to help you be willing to do that that you'll move forward and be able to forgive these people that you're so incredibly resentful at. And I walked out of that 5th step experience, and my perception had changed. And the world looked different. Who I was in the world different. What was different. But my entire perception of everything, of life, of how I've lived up until that point, had changed. And that was as no result of me. That had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with me putting in the work to write the 4th step. It had to do with some sort of power that I couldn't define. I couldn't, sit up here and articulate it well enough for you guys to understand it. Like I said, if you haven't had an experience with it, you're not going to get it. If half of this room has smelled roses and the other haven't, you wouldn't be able to tell them or articulate what a rose smells like. But if they walked out of this meeting and they went and they smelled a rose, they would know exactly what I'm talking about when I sit up here and say that. If you've gone through the step process and you've had an experience with God, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that perception change where you see in yourself that you're now acting differently than you would have prior. When you look at yourself and you see that you're handling situations in a way that you never would have handled them before. And in that moment, for me personally, it's promised by the 10th step that the obsession's removed. It was removed at the 5th step. And it's returned one time since, and immediate action had done what it always does. And God showed up, and he took care of that. But I was placed in a position of neutrality, as the book promises, very, very rapidly, which is good, because a kid like me needed to be. So many times I'd walked in and out of the rooms and wanted to get sober and try to do these different things and not been able to. And, I went through the rest of the steps. I got to, step 9. And, like, I had heard stuff in the rooms, and I asked my sponsor, I said, is it too late now to say sorry? And he was like, you're not going to say sorry. You're going to go forward, and you're going to say, what can I do to set this right? You're going to, in a sense, apologize for the harms you've caused. You're going to see how you've harmed them in ways you don't even know about. And you're going to move forward and clean up your side of the street. And that's going to take action. You've done enough talking up until this point. Let's see what your feet do. Let's see if you can show up as a son like you've never been able to do before. Let's see if you can show up as an employee in the job that you work or wherever it is and move forward and start to become a different person. Because it's not good enough to just be sitting in a meeting and be spiritual. It's not good enough to be spiritual only when I'm sitting down with the sponsee or on the phone with the sponsee if I'm walking away from that and I'm not living right. and I'm not doing the things to better my life and to become a different person and to become that person that can be at maximum service to God and to my fellows, which is what the book calls me to do on page 102. And then I started doing the most beautiful thing that we have to offer here, which is carrying that message to another person. And I got a lot of, shit for it, because I started sponsoring very early on. And I had heard constantly, like, wait a year, wait a year, wait a year. I didn't have anything close to a year. But my sponsor said neither did Bill Wilson, neither did Dr. Bob, neither did Debbie Thatcher. He said, thank God nobody told them that because there would be no Alcoholics Anonymous. 10% of what AA has to offer comes from the first 11 steps. I believe that the other 90% comes from step 12. And if you haven't gone through that and you haven't sit down and seen the light come on in your sponsee's eyes, or you haven't, I remember there was a time, man, I was probably 3-4 months sober, and I walked into a room and one of my sponsees had 3 of his sponsees on their knees doing a third step prayer. That's better than drugs and alcohol, man. I mean, you can't put a price on that. And to see that ripple effect, to see how God shows up in the lives of people, I'm responsible for one thing, and that is planting seeds. Suiting up and showing up and just allowing myself, to get out of my own way and be of service. And God's responsible for watering those seeds. Out of that equation, who doesn't show up? Me. I'll fail people. I teach my sponsees very early on not to be sponsor reliant. I have quite a few sponsees sitting in here right now. They will tell you that. The majority of the time they call, I don't answer my phone, but they know, I will fail you time and time again. You know who will not? God. And the only reason that I'm sitting up here tonight, or I'm sitting anywhere for that matter, is because I have a God in my life that does for me every day, one day at a time, what I could never do for myself. Like I said at the beginning of this, left to my own devices, I would have destroyed my life years ago. So real quick, I'll tell you guys like 1 or 2 quick stories and just wrap up. It's easy to, our sponsorship family's big on the idea of, like, we live our lives forward, but we view them backwards, especially in the spiritual sense. And there's so many moments where God blesses me enough that I can pause in that moment and see the real work that God's doing. And, like, I can look around and I can see the bank account. I can see the car outside. I can see the relationships that have been mended. I can see all of this stuff that's tangible and visible in the outside. But, like, every once in a while, God will allow me to pause and see the work that he's doing in here, which is what it's all about. Because my life is absolutely beautiful today. Like, just like Trevor said, man, like, I got a Cadillac sitting outside. I got, a couple numbers in my bank account. I got a beautiful girlfriend. I got all this cool stuff. And, like, the reality of it is, at the end of the day, that's just stuff. And it could come and go. The reason I'm absolutely indebted to Alcoholics Anonymous is I've spent my entire life, and I've looked in a lot of places, a lot of bottles, a lot of pipes, you name it. I've looked everywhere to find some sort of peace, some sort of serenity, something where I can be with Cam and be okay. And I haven't been able to find it anywhere until I came in here. And you guys showed me exactly what it was to move forward and to start to get connected to that power that has the ability to give me that. I've never experienced that before. Like I said, that stuff, it comes and it goes. The cars go, the relationships, they come, they go. The jobs, they go and come, and it's cool. Here's the reality of it is I had a sponsor early on tell me, like, I called him to complain about a bunch of stuff, and he said, in this moment, is everything okay? And that was a place that I had never been before. As I sit here right now with you guys, and I'm present, and I'm in the 4th dimension, and I'm right here, everything's okay. Everything's okay. I spent a lot of my life worrying about what was going to happen, or how I was going to fix this problem if it happened. What if I lose the job? What if I do this? What if this happens? And the majority of that stuff didn't happen, but even the stuff that did, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. The way that I've viewed my life is like, the things that happened, they weren't terrible. They really weren't that bad. The way I perceived them and the way I felt about them at the time is that they were like life-ending, that they were absolutely terrible. And that's just not the case. And AA, of course, sitting here in retrospect, being removed from drugs and alcohol for 2.5 years, I can see that. While I'm in it, I can't. While I'm in it, I can't. If I don't get rocketed to that 4th dimension, if I don't find the thing that I've been looking for my entire life, which is to be able to be comfortable with Cam and be present in this exact moment as I sit here, right here with you guys, or any moment for that matter, if I don't find that, like, I'm not staying. People don't stay in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because of what they don't know. They don't stay in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because of what they don't feel. The first time someone came up and offered me drugs, I didn't say to them, like, why don't you explain it? You know, I need to completely understand it before I do it, and I need to know what's going to happen in my brain and how the chemicals are going to be released and all this stuff. I need to know that, and then I'll think about doing it. No, I did it, and I had an experience, and I liked the experience, and I went back to it over and over and over again. It's the same thing of Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to know what your conception of God is. You need to come in here, you need to get off the debate team, and you need to take a set of simple instructions as outlined in the big book on the first 164 pages by the founders. It's very, very simple. You know, this is the only thing we have to offer in here. Sure, the fellowship is absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's a third of the, three-sided triangle. But if you're in here and you cannot for the life of you figure out how to stay sober, if you look around and you see other people getting it and you're sitting there and you're wondering, why can't I get connected to this thing that all these other people have? I've been there. I've been there. If you do not have a sponsor that is working out of that literature and showing you exactly how they walk the path, get one. Get one. It's the only thing we have to offer here. And when I came in here, man, I was a liar, I was a thief, and a plagiarist. And because of those things, I thought that I was a bad person. And what I found out is that those are necessary survival skills for a place like this. And I came in and I applied those, and essentially what I did is that I stole your guys' stuff, I made it mine, and I was an imposter of what you guys did. And I thought by doing those things that I would get what you got. But I didn't. I didn't. What I got was the power that gave you guys what you got. And for that, I'm forever grateful. For years, I tried to kill a kid that I didn't even know, so thank all of you for my life.
Wow. Pretty powerful stuff with two young guys.